The tumultuous life of O.J. Simpson, from football Hall of Famer to movie star to double murder suspect, has captivated the country for decades. A quote from an ABC article, which I found while I was researching this topic, says a lot about how big a public figure O.J. Simpson was, and not all for good reasons. On June 17, 1994, citizens of the United States witnessed a live televised slow police car chase of O.J. Simpson, or nicknamed Juice, a beloved football player, after the bodies of his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were found outside of her home in Los Angeles. Hi everyone, I'm Juliana Bell, and I will walk you through the events of the O.J. Simpson arrest and trial, discussing the impacts that he himself had on the American public and how his trial changed many Americans. Just a little bit of background for those who aren't aware of who O.J. Simpson was. He started his football career at the University of Southern California, or USC, where he won the highest accolade known as the Heisman Trophy as USC's running back in 1968. He was the number 1 pick in the 1969 NFL Draft, going to the Buffalo Bills, and in 1973, he became the first player to rush for more than 2,000 yards in one season. Then he retired in 1979 after one of the best football careers in history, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1985. After retiring from football, Simpson began a career in film industry, doing many commercials and starring in a few well-known movies like The Naked Gun, which were made in the 80s and 90s. Simpson had one other wife before he and Nicole Brown were married in 1985, so he had 5 children in total, 2 with Nicole before they divorced in 1992. The night of June 12, 1994, changed the lives of many, not just in the circle of O.J. Simpson. On that night, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were brutally stabbed to death outside of her condo in Los Angeles. According to reports, early in the evening before the murders, Nicole went to dinner with her children and some family and friends at 6:30 and left around 8. She then took her kids to get ice cream and returned home. Nicole's sister called the restaurant around 9:15, saying that the woman had left a pair of glasses. The waiter, and also a friend, Ronald Goldman, offered to drop them off, and witnesses at the trial said he left the restaurant around 9:50. During the trial, the prosecution suggested that the two were murdered at 10:15, which would give O.J. time to get there and return to his mansion, which was only 2 miles away, in time for his limo to pick him up at 11 and head to the airport for his 11:45 flight to Chicago. Nicole's neighbor heard her dog barking around 10:15 or 10:20, which made the defense claim that the murders occurred after that, which would not have given Simpson enough time to get there and back and leave for the airport. Another one of Nicole's neighbors said they found a dog of the same breed that Nicole owned wandering around while he was walking a dog at 10:30. He and his wife decided to follow the dog after midnight, where they then followed him back to Nicole's home, where they found her and Goldman dead outside.
Look at the people. Look at the people. There's the left-hand turn onto Sunset Boulevard.
Yep.
Now from there, if he's going to Brentwood, he'll be passing Barrington, Bundy,
Look
Cliffwood.
at that. David,
And
God,
about,
can't we get back on?
a half mile or a quarter mile from Cliffwood, on the west of Cliffwood, is Rockingham.
David?
So
There appear to be no barricades in front of the house.
No.
Looks as if he has free access to drive in.
there's the ground shot on your right-hand side. That is Rockingham and Ashford, and that is O.J. Simpson's house.
And there's someone in the doorway there.
O.J. was immediately the police's leading suspect. He flew to Chicago on a late flight and checked into a hotel at 6:15 a.m. local time, telling the hotel he was in town for Hertz, the company he represented. The manager recalls him checking out at 8:30 a.m. The police drove to Simpson's house at 4 a.m. Pacific time to inform him of the murder, but instead found a bloody glove that matched one they found at the crime scene, along with bloodstains in his vehicle. They got a warrant to search the remainder of the house and property, finding more traces of blood. They then had to call him to inform him of his ex-wife's death, and he flew back to Los Angeles. When he arrived in his home in LA, the police came and handcuffed him for a while. They took him to headquarters, where they questioned him like a witness for hours. Then he was released. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman's funerals were held on June 16th, a few days after their death. They were buried. Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman's funerals were held on June 16th, a few days after their death. A separate burial took place where O.J. and his children attended Nicole's burial. The same day, information was released from 1989 that O.J. Simpson allegedly beat Nicole Brown Simpson. This was now public knowledge for everyone to read. O.J., already being suspect number 1, has all eyes on him now. The following day, June 17th, O.J.'s lawyers were informed that if he didn't surrender by noon, he would become a fugitive of the law. O.J. had stayed at a friend's house and got someone else to drive him in a white Ford Bronco just like his. The chase had begun. It was after noon, and the police were on the move to arrest O.J. They were able to track a call that Simpson made around 5:30 and began to pursue him at almost 6 p.m. The roads of Southern California came to a stop during this 2-hour slow-speed car chase on the highways. O.J. was hiding in the back of the car while Al Cowlings, a college and NFL football teammate, drove the vehicle. The police had been told that O.J. was allegedly holding a gun to his head, so they were not going to engage in a high-speed chase, risking him taking his own life. As the chase continued for a couple of hours, all of America, especially those in California, stopped to watch the pursuit. Helicopters followed from above, while news stations, along with American citizens, filmed what they could of this captivating event. People were stopped on the roads, and many got out of their cars to see the Ford Bronco, followed by dozens of cop cars as they passed by. People even held up signs saying, "Free Jews," or "Stop this chase for O.J." The chase eventually came to an end when they arrived at O.J.'s mansion. He stayed in the car for another 45 minutes while the police waited till he came out. They did have a few brawls with Al Cowlings before. He was arrested at 8:47 p.m. and taken into custody. The trial of the century. The O.J. Simpson trial is known as one of the most sensational criminal trials in American history. It began on January 24, 1995, 6 months after his arraignment, where he pleaded not guilty, where he even said, "I am 100% not guilty." Before the trial began, the prosecution decided not to pursue the death penalty, but instead sought life without parole. The trial began with opening statements by both the prosecution and the defense. Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden led with these words: "He killed her out of jealousy. He killed her because he couldn't have her." Some harsh statements. The defense gave their opening statement the following day, saying, "This case is about a rush to judgment, an obsession to win at any cost." Another thing to note before I dive into the trial is that many before and during the trial and outside of the courtroom called the trial an obstruction of racial justice, claiming that the white policemen were after him because he was black. Key pieces that were used in the trial were the use of prior events to the murder. On the day of her funeral, as mentioned earlier, reports were released that Nicole had been beaten by Simpson previously. During the investigation, police uncovered a few instances of domestic violence while the couple was still married. The trial was long, lasted over 8 months, from late January to early October. 150 witnesses were called to the stand to discuss events that had happened during and after Nicole and OJ were married. Pieces that went well for the defense. First of all, he had the dream team representing him, some of the best in the business. Also, many people may have heard the saying, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." These words came from the mouth of Simpson's leading attorney, Johnny Cochran, in his closing statement after the prosecution had Simpson try on the gloves they found, one near the body of Goldman and the other on his property at his mansion, and the leather gloves appeared to be too tight on him. It was hard for them to decide on this. Points were brought up about how a glove might shrink. They were determined that this was their guy, though, and the DNA matched. The defense tried to claim that Detective Mark Furman was racist. While on the stand, he denied those claims. He also objects to the defense's theories that he had tampered with evidence and purposely undermined the investigation. Later in the trial, a tape was played for the courtroom where Furman is using racial slurs and is proud of the police brutality that he enforced, all contradictory to the testimony that he gave earlier on. The trial switched from OJ on trial for murder to a trial of the LA Police Department. A prosecution always starts well during a trial because they take up the first half. But the public saw how this trial didn't start well for them. They tried to find other ways to prove that the bloody gloves belonged to Simpson, using photographs of him wearing either the gloves or gloves similar to the ones in this case. They showed photos of him at a football game holding an umbrella with gloves that looked very identical to these. They showed other photos as well, but that was one of the most significant. Testimonies from Nicole's family helped the prosecution. One of her sister-in-laws testified to hearing Nicole say that her husband would abuse her. Statements like these looked like pieces of motive that had been there from the start and escalated in his mind to take her life completely. The defense called a lot of evidence that the prosecution brought to the table circumstantial. After a long 8 months, the closing statements were made, and the jury began deliberating. On October 2nd, the jury had reached a verdict in less than 4 hours, but the announcement was delayed till the 3rd. Verdict, not guilty. Polls were taken on public responses, and like before it began, America was divided on a racial line, with some swaying from one side to the other. Racism seemed to have been a leading headline from the start. This is when questions began to arise once more on how the legal system deals with police brutality. We've already gone through civil rights, where changes were being made, but this is something that is present even today in 2025. The families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were outraged by the trial's outcome. They felt they had been robbed of justice and the lives of Nicole and Ronald. Following the trial, the family sued OJ for being the cause of their deaths in 1997. He then went to a civil trial where he was found responsible and owed Goldman's family $8.5 million. A week later, they decided he owed both families $25 million. Simpson got off the hook for murder, according to the majority of the American public. For the remainder of his life, he would be looked down upon and hated. He would even lead a criminal life, being convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping, where he would serve 9 years of time in jail. After this, he spent the rest of his life trying to stay out of the public eye till his death on April 10th, 2024, after a battle with prostate cancer. For the remaining 30 years of his life and even beyond, the name O.J. Simpson and his career as a phenomenal football player would be overshadowed by his trial for murder in '94. People involved in the trial would go on to become famous. Families like the Kardashians would not be known if their father was not close friends with Simpson and who was one of his defense attorneys as well. Coverage of a car chase and trial was unheard of till this. In a world of smartphones and reality TV, we can't quite understand the feeling of watching police cars chase after a wanted man for murder. They weren't used to coming home to watch a murder trial live. Society stepped into a world, something that they couldn't go back on. The justice system is a hard one to keep clean, and lines become fuzzy way too often. Morals seem to disappear in the minds of criminals, but somehow they escape punishment. Many say that OJ did not receive the punishment he deserved, even after his passing. The shadow of what he did and got away with will hang on the necks of those who corrupted the system, by accident or on purpose. Domestic violence should never be overlooked after this trial, which ignored all the signs. There will never be another O.J. Simpson case. This was said by Dan Abrams, the Law and Crimes founder.